Hello, 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 and thank you again for joining us for Workspace Spark. We are so excited to be here and always excited to have our experts who are in the field, who know how to help us, right? And so we are so grateful today to have Natasha Ferguson with us, expert career coach, and she is going to be bringing us some information about being authenticity in leadership. So thank you so much for being here, Natasha.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. It is a pleasure to be here to talk to you and your subscribers. This is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this industry? And let those subscribers know who you are.
Oh, how did I get into this industry? I think I snuck in through the back door or something. I started my career early off as a paralegal, actually. I was a paralegal for the first half of my career life, probably around 10, 12 years. And then I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my little self. And I went to a career coach, ironically, and talked to her, and we were able to identify a couple of strengths, some things that I could do. And she told me to take my talents to the HR world. I did that, and I guess I did okay. I've been in there about 15 plus years now, and it has been wonderful. I touched pretty much every area of HR. I've done talent acquisition, diversity and inclusion, learning development. So pretty much anything that there is, I've tried to put my hand in it a little bit. I also am the founder, CEO of Clutch Coaching and Consulting, where I help women in the workplace to kind of identify their professional superpowers and leverage those. And on a personal note, I am a mom, I'm a wife, I am a Gammy to a wonderful 3-year-old energetic grandchild who keeps me on my toes. I love wine. I love good food. I love good books and good conversation.
We should be friends. I love all of those things.
Yes.
Oh, and imagine balancing all of that, right? All the things that we do in our lives, all the many hats we wear. So thank you so much for sharing your story and how you got into this industry. Now, you said something I loved, professional superpowers. I don't think that we think about that enough. We think about, some things that come second nature, but those things are superpowers that
Exactly.
we take for granted. So I just love that term when you said I've never really heard it that way, but totally a superpower.
It is. It's those things, people are always tapping on us to do. And because we do it so effortlessly, it's like, oh, but no, leverage it. That's what you do. That's what you're good at. That's your superpower. Put your hands on your shoulders.
I know. I love that. So we're talking about authenticity and leadership, right? And sometimes I think now we're hearing those words together, but before they really weren't. What does it mean to be authentic? Like we hear that, we see the memes, but what does it really mean to be authentic?
I mean, if you ask people, everybody's going to have their own definition, right? For me, authenticity is really truth. It's the truth. It is what undergirds your actions and your words. I'm from rural Mississippi, so I'm always using some crazy terminology, but my grandmother, she would say that it was when you are standing with both feet flat and your chest, out. It's like when you can stand in your truth, and what you say is what you say, and what you do is what you do, and you lead from that perspective. And I think what has happened in the corporate space now is that a lot of time as leaders, we take transparency and authenticity and we put them together, right? And we treat them like they're the same, but they're not. Really, I like to look at it. If I had to use an analogy, I would say if you're buying a house, right? And you find the house, you call the agent, you engage the agent, and then they have an open house and they say, come on in, and you come see the house and you admire everything, you're looking at the aesthetics and the fixtures and all the stuff. That's the transparency. They let you in, they want you to see it, you've seen it. But the truth is when the inspector comes and the inspector pulls back the sheets and all of the foundational issues and the problems. That's the authenticity of the house, because you were enamored with all of the pretty things, but then you've got to have that truth to undergird it. And I think there's a difference, but we oftentimes put them together. We want them to go together. We want to use them interchangeably, but they're a little different. Yeah.
Good. I've never really thought about the difference in transparency and authenticity. So great analogy. I often think that, especially as leaders, we think we need to be transparent to get respect. But I do think that standing in your truth is even more important. So why do you think, I'm sorry,
No, that's what I was agreeing.
why do you think leaders need to be authentic?
It's the trust factor.
Mm,
As the young people say, it's the trust for me. Yeah, it's the trust factor, right? It is authenticity builds trust. And in order to have interpersonal relationships and manage those very well, we have to have, authentic leadership. We have to lead from a level of being truthful and being honest, and people can connect with us. And when they connect with us, and then they give us more, right? They invest more of themselves. They invest their time, their energy, and their efforts because they trust you. And if you think about it from a personal perspective, we all want someone who we can quote unquote keep it real with, and that person can keep it real with us. So why wouldn't we want the same thing in the workplace? You want to be real with your team, so you want your team to be real with you, and they're not going to do that when they don't trust who they're talking to. They don't know what version they're getting. It's like, okay, yeah, she was that way today, what about tomorrow?
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, I think too, when I can think back of the times when the first time I became a manager,
Mm-hmm.
and just how scared I was on making sure I didn't mess up and that I lead these people. I had a video like this, right? I wish someone would have talked to me about being more authentic.
Yeah.
I was faking it until I make it, right? That's what the terminology that I remember back then.
Yeah.
But realistically, learning with my team, and being vulnerable and saying that I think is super important. But I learned that later on in life, right? And so,
Right.
can you describe the characteristics of an authentic leader?
Oh, let's see. Vanessa, you're asking such good questions.
Yeah.
I think an authentic leader is empathetic, right? They're able to put themselves in other people's shoes. They're able to see things from other people's perspectives. And that's really big, right? To be able to do that and to relate to your team. They're great listeners because authenticity starts with the heart. And so if you're leading from the heart, you need to be intentional about hearing more than you're speaking. You're hearing what I'm saying and actually hearing the heart of what I'm speaking about. And so I think that they are great listeners. They're great learners. I think they are people who have experienced a lot and they lead from that place of experience. So it's one thing to tell me something that you read in a book, but it's another thing to tell me something and show me something that you've learned. And I can see the truth in it, and I can see your vulnerability in it because you've actually experienced it, you've lived it, you've walked in the shoes that you're trying to take me on. So I think that they are good learners. They are the epitome of team players, right? So they always are going to share the kudos when the kudos are due, giving credit where it's due. And at the same time, they're not going to be tongue lashing their team. They are going to be uplifting and empowering them. But if there is some feedback that needs to be given, it's going to come with truth. But it's also going to be something that propels them forward as opposed to kind of tearing them down. So I think those are probably my biggest ones. But I think the biggest one for me, I've said empathy, leader, I think they are consistent. They are going to be that version today because I guess as my grandma said, they're flat-footed, they've got their feet planted flatly. And so they're not going to be wavering. You're not going to have to be concerned about what version is going to show up today. Who am I going to engage in this meeting today? They are going to be consistent. So I think those are the main characteristics of a leader who is leading with from a place of authenticity.
Oh, that's good. Empathy, especially. And like you said, being consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that as a leader, we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But if we are true to the core of who we are, then it's so much easier. So
Mhm.
totally agree with that. And it's hard to stay consistent if you're fake, right? Like we're talking about being in your truth.
Yes. You're trying to choose a mask, right? And every day it's like, or every moment for some people, it's like, which mask do I put on? You know, I put on this mask for this person, put on this mask. And sooner or later, you're going to forget. And you're going to be out there maskless,
Agreed.
or you're going to have the wrong mask on with the wrong audience.
Mm,
Neither of those are going to work.
agreed. Again, back to self-awareness. So you can't really be consistent if you're not sure who you are as a person and as a leader. Why is self-awareness important in leadership? So we talked about empathy and consistency, but why do you think it's important to be self-aware?
Because you're dealing with people as a leader, and people are not one dimensional, right? We're complex creatures. We have multiple layers. And in order to be a leader, you need to be able to understand yourself in order to be able to connect with other people and all of their complexities. So you've got all of these complexities going on, and you need to be aware of those. I think that self-awareness is probably one of the most underutilized tools that we have, right? You know, because if you don't really know yourself, and I mean really know yourself, like know your triggers, know what, motivates you, heck, knows demotivates you, making up for it, but whatever it is that brings you down, you need to know those things so that you can understand how you operate. And if you can't do that, you're not leading you. And if you can't lead you, I'm gonna leave that. So not leading anybody else, definitely.
Agreed. I just think that so much inner work though to really understand your triggers and all those things, that's why a lot of people aren't self-aware because they don't really want to do the work. I've for the last 2 years have really been working on, of course, with therapy, but my own, self-discovery on what my triggers are, how am I as a leader, and getting feedback. I think feedback's super important too, to understand. So can you provide 3 ways leaders can become more authentic? So just kind of a background, the people who are listening to us, they're in many different walks of life. Some of them are just now into leadership. Some of them have been in leadership for a while, but we're talking about authenticity. That was a word that really didn't go in leadership until a few years ago. So do you have ways that leaders who may feel like they're not authentic that can be more authentic?
Yeah, I think they can start with being open, right? So being open to change, being open to the idea of being truthful, being open to the idea that vulnerability doesn't make them weak. It actually puts them in a place of strength. So that they're able to lead their teams, that they're able to be open to ideas, to be open for people to be able to share. We often say, I have an open door policy, but when I come in the door, you're not really paying attention. You don't really want to hear what I say. You just say you're open. So just being open to the whole idea of changing. And then back to the self-awareness thing. They need to become more self-aware. So if that looks like asking people, what do you experience when you experience me? What was your experience when you last engaged me? How did I leave you feeling? Finding those things out, sending out those crazy text messages to 3 or 4 people who you've engaged over the last 60 days or whatever, and asking those things. What are 3 things about me? What would 3 adjectives you use to describe me? Or any of those things, any of those quirky, crazy things that you read on life hacks, any of that stuff, just finding out what people think and how they feel, just being more aware of yourself and how you take up space in the world. But I think another thing that they could really do is start with why. I don't really think we ask the right questions all the time. And why is one of those questions that when you want to lead from a place of authenticity, you've got to start with, because motives are really a heart issue, right? And authenticity is a heart leading place to lead from. Like if you're going to lead in authenticity, you're going to lead with your heart, and your motives have a lot to do with your heart. And so asking, why did I say that? Why did they respond this way? Why didn't I say that? Or why didn't I do that? Or why did this happen? finding out the why really helps you to become more authentic. So if you can lead from the why space, I think it helps a lot.
I love that. I think that, why is not, like you said, it's not a question that people ask all the time, right? Why am I even at this job? Why am I in this position? Or why do I want to get another position? A lot of people are excited about getting promotions, but do you really ask yourself why that, and what that looks like? I think that's perfectly said.
Yeah. I think that's one of those little questions. And I think sometimes we don't ask the why because we don't want to know the answer. So we don't ask because
that
if I find out, if I get the answer, then that means that I have to do something about it, right? So it could be that I don't ask why do I want this promotion because I really don't want the promotion. I really want the title that comes with it or the appearance of the title, but the responsibility or the work, I really don't even like it. I'm just good at
it. You stepping on toes today.
I'm good at it and people are pulling me to it, but I really don't like to do it. And ultimately, I'm going to be in a spiral, right? I'm going to get in this job and I'm going to be miserable in this new role because I didn't ask the question as to why am I doing this?
So good. That ego, that's why that why is tough, right? That's why the self-awareness is tough because you're putting your mirror up to your face to really see what's going on with you. I stayed in a job, excuse me, moved into an executive role and was so excited, and it just wasn't panning out. It didn't sit well with me intuition wise. I love the organization and love the mission, but it just wasn't panning out. Things weren't moving the way it needed to, but I didn't want to leave. And when I really asked myself my why, it was my ego. And to be able to say that now, hindsight's 2020, but at the time I could not pinpoint that. And it's a hard thing to say that my ego was standing in the way because no one wants to talk about, those things. But I couldn't get to that solution without asking myself why. So totally agree. What resources are out there for leaders that want to become more authentic? Are there books? Are there other podcasts? What resources or things are available?
So I think if you Google authentic leadership, you're going to have 1,000,001 options, especially when it comes to books. You can't go wrong with a Bill George book. I think he's probably the father of authentic leadership. When you think about it, in any of the spaces, there are going to be all types of schools of thoughts around it. But I think he has a book called Authentic Leadership, and it's a really good read on authentic leadership. If you want something that's not in a book form, that's kind of shorter, some of those people like me that need something real quick during lunch break, you can get the Harvard Business Review has lots of things on authentic leadership. There are several podcasts. If you go on Spotify, any of your platforms, you can type it in. You should be able to find something. And then for self-awareness in that leadership space, I think we probably have already talked about the personality test. I think I'm a personality test junkie. So taking every personality test there is. I probably could create one, but I think it's really good for people that are trying to be more authentic in leadership and learning themselves and kind of taking those tests. But the thing about it is that we don't often do is after you take the test and you get the results, right? Understanding the results and what they really mean. So going a step further, if you're really serious about it and investing in, if you don't understand it, getting someone who does understand it. So getting one of the professionals, the experts that are certified in reading it to kind of walk you through it, talk about it, go through the results. Because we get those things back sometime and we're like, what? We picked the parts of it that we really liked. It's like, yes, see, I knew that was me right there.
I feel like you're reading me right now, Natasha. I feel like you're reading some of my journals because I am a personality test junkie as well. Even the Facebook ones, even the little funny Facebook, I'm doing all of them. But then what? Right? Yeah. So I see this information, or it's confirmation that I've heard before. Do I have a plan to change that? I do believe that we have the capacity to change some things, right?
Absolutely.
So I've been guilty of signing up, seeing I'm NJF something, something, and
Yes.
doing nothing with it.
I've been the disc, the gallows, the Myers-Briggs, all the things. I love Strength Finders. It is one of my favorites. Just those top 5 really work for me. I think it's probably one of my favorites. And I think that works for a lot of people. But again, it takes time to go through it, understand it, and then like apply it.
Yeah.
That's the key. Learning it, understanding it, and applying it.
I agree. It's funny you mentioned Strength Finder. I said to my friend that I was going to read it again. I haven't read it in a really long time. Those are just classic books that you have to go back to. Sometimes you forget. I read it early in my career. So now, can you talk to us a little bit about emotional intelligence and why it is important in our careers? I know we're talking about authenticity, but I do think that a level of emotional intelligence is important. Can you talk to us about that?
Now, Vanessa, we don't even have time to unpack.
Okay, just give me a little. Give me a little.
I mean, there's so many layers to emotional intelligence. That's like a big one. We can have a whole nother conversation. But I think emotional intelligence is really going to be kind of understanding how your emotions drive you and how you handle those. And I think when people can really tap into knowing how they react, what their actions cause reactions, they can understand better how to lead, and then they'll understand how to better manage those interpersonal relationships. I don't think we really think about emotions in that way, right? We kind of think of it as, especially as women, most people in the workplace think of women as being emotional creatures. They operate from their emotions, but every human has emotions.
Say that again.
I mean, every human has emotions. And when you can tap into your personal emotions, right? And then you can understand how those connect with other people and how those emotions drive their actions, it can really change the game for your career. Case in point, as a leader, especially. Case in point, when we think about, let's say, fear. Fear is one of our general emotions, right? When we think about fear can have a person to be a procrastinator. So you as a leader think that the person procrastinates because they just have a bad habit of procrastinating. But the person could actually be procrastinating because they are afraid that what they have to offer isn't good enough. They're afraid that they're not going to live up to the expectations of the person who came before them. They're afraid. There are all types of things that come out of fear, which is the reason why they are now pushing off the project, holding on, stalling, instead of asking and coming back to the table and saying, hey, I wasn't clear on the instructions, or I have this idea. Is this where we're going? They're just not there yet. But you have classified it in something totally different because you're not in touch with emotions, what emotions can do, how it can play out. And so when you can understand those things, then you can go to that person and like, you had a project, dude, and you haven't given me that project. This isn't like you, or this is something that you consistently do. Is there a problem? So you can lead from another perspective when you really can tap into those emotions and figure out what those things, those outcomes are. But we don't think of it in that nature. We think of it emotional intelligence is learning not to fly off the handle, or, and that is true. But there are other aspects of emotional intelligence. And yeah, we get into this all day. I'm just gonna lead us along. But it's important. It can really, really change the game if you can really tap into how your actions, your reactions cause actions and reactions in other people. Yeah.
No, I think that you're right. Like you said, we can take a long time unpacking that, but it sounds like the consensus of what we're saying is to really be an authentic leader, you've really got to tap into who you are.
Absolutely.
It's hard to be a leader if you're not quite sure who you are. You said earlier about leading yourself. If you can't lead yourself, it's going to be really hard to lead others. If
Absolutely.
you aren't tapping into who you are, then you're probably not caring who your teammates are or who the people who report to you. So
Yeah.
this has been so great, Natasha. If you could just leave us with any last words that you want to share with our subscribers.
If there was any last words, especially in the area of authenticity, I think it is know yourself. And no matter what level you're at, it's always important to start with you. Authenticity starts here and then it spreads out. And so if you know you, you can know your team. So I think we should be intentional about getting to know yourself. So get you a journal, spend some time, get you a personality test, whatever it is, sign up for one. And if you don't have one, call Vanessa about, we'll find you one. We've got a personality test for you. But learn yourself. Just learn yourself, connect with you before you connect with others.
Agreed. Such great advice. Thank you so much, Natasha. Now, how can our subscribers follow you, find you?
Yeah. So they can find me on my website, www.clatch.net. They can also join my group on Facebook. So I have a group on Facebook called the Career Clatch. And I come in there, I pop in, do lives from time to time, but I also have other professionals that are sharing information. So it's just a support group. I say, a little therapy session for us career workers that are still kind of in this career space, navigating it. And they can do that by going to www.jointhecareerclatch.net. I'm sorry, it's .com. www.jointhecareerclatch.com. Yeah.
No problem. We'll make sure we put it down in the comments section so you all can take a look at it and follow up with Natasha, let her know how awesome she is and if you need her services. Again, thank you so much, Natasha. And we hope that you have a great day. And thank you for all these tips for our subscribers.
You are so very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your week.